Hi, everybody. How you doing? I am Johan. That is Charleston. Today's guest on the Better with Age webcast is one of my favorite athletes. Being only one of 4 Argo fans here in Saskatchewan, it is really truly a blessing, a privilege to introduce to you, again, one of my favorite players from all time from the Toronto Argonauts, Mr. Mike Pinball Clemons. Mike, how you doing today?
Oh, better than I deserve. I am really excited with you today, and especially with the legendary Charles.
Yes.
I'm just trying to be as great as you. Don't worry, I'm gonna get there one day.
Charleston, I want to know, did you ever see any highlights of Mike playing?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you know about kind of the legend of Mike Pinball Clemons?
I don't know the legend. I don't know why do they call him Pinball. I need to know all this stuff right now. The one thing I do know is I had an opportunity to hear him speak. I think it was for our team when I played in Calgary. And I think Chris Jones might have brought you to speak to the team, or it might have been Huff, one of the guys. But we met with you for a little bit, and at that time, I got a chance to listen to you speak. And I think at that time you spoke about the difference between LeBron James and Dwayne Wade when he played for Miami Heat. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Oh, yeah, that's great. No, I don't.
I remember because I was like, man, who is this guy? I was like, he's a good speaker. Like, he's a powerful speaker. You know, a lot of people that possess that kind of mind and internal heart where they can speak to people in a way that makes them feel what you're feeling, you have that power.
He's got that gift.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's so kind, because you have it in spades.
You know what? That is true, Mike. I think that one of the things that's always drawn me to Charleston too is that the way he interacts with the fans, the way he interacts with all the stuff he does here in Saskatchewan for the charities, the way he goes out of his way to do things, and he doesn't publicize it. You know, he's not one to go out and, put it on social media, not one to be able to do that. He does it out of the goodness of his heart. And usually it's guys like me, friends like me, that have to sit there and say, hey, guys, people, are you seeing what Charleston is doing? He reminds me so much of Mike Pinball Clemons and all the stuff that you've done throughout your career, Mike, and to do that. But Charleston is one of those entertaining, humble, caring guys, both of you guys. It's amazing to have you guys on the same screen and be able to do that. So it's awesome. Let's, Charleston, one of the things that I've seen throughout my many years of watching CFL, I grew up an Argo fan here in Saskatchewan, which is rare. I grew up watching Conridge Holloway, Terry Greer, Gil the Thrill, Fennerty.
Mentor. Gil the Thrill was my mentor.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, do you know who that is, Charleston? Do you ever know? No, he was a American player that came and played with the Argos, number 6 running back. I think he was a returner too, Mike, wasn't he?
More of a kickoff return, yeah, guys.
And he went on to play in the NFL with the New Orleans Saints and had lots of success. But I mean, with the Argos, he was just a dynamic runner, returner, just a fantastic player. And then throughout my career, then I got to grow up watching, players like that. And then Mike Pinball Clemons came to the league, and we'll get Mike to talk about how he got that nickname. But talk about dynamic, talk about, just changing the way that a guy with his height was able to electrify the crowd, and to do that the way he caught the ball running out of the backfield. I mean, he was comparable to one of my other idols growing up. It was Barry Sanders. I thought he was the Canadian Football League Barry Sanders. You put him in a phone booth with 7 guys in there, he'd still get out of there untouched and be able to do that. Mike, let's talk about how did you get that nickname, Pinball?
Well, you're being too kind, but the best compliment I have ever had as it relates to football was Barry Sanders sent me a message through another player, a fellow teammate, to say, hey, tell that pinball guy, tell him I said hello, man. He's got some game. So that's the best ever had in my life. So Barry is sort of my all-time favorite. But for me, Charleston, man, if you see back in those old days, my jersey was so big. When I made a move, my jersey was still over here, right? And they tackle a jersey, and I was going over the other side, right? But I got the nickname for I'm only 5'5", and I would get hit and didn't fall down, and so we had this goal line scrimmage in training camp, and just like supposed to, I was the young guy, so I was a scout team, and they had the real defense, right? So boom, I get hit like I'm supposed to, and I ran around the other end and I scored. And usually that's a good, but this wasn't an offensive drill, right? So the coach, hey, do it again. And so now there's no imagination. You already know what's happening on the goal line. You're going straight ahead. But now there's no imagination at all, and you've just embarrassed these guys. So now this time, they knew what was coming, and so one of the defensive guys shot the gap, came, and he almost got there before the quarterback did. So he almost got the ball before the quarterback was able to hand it to me, and he drilled me. But I went back about 5 yards. I ran around the other end. I scored again. He said, "You little guy, get out of my drill." And so I never had. And they made the statement. We have this new guy that bounces around like a pinball, and it's tough.
Mike, Pinball Clemons, how frustrating is it, Charleston, when you're playing a guy like that all of a sudden you hit him, and then he's still able to bounce off and be able to do that, or he ducks under you, or he's got those jukes to be able to do that. How frustrating is it for you?
It's frustrating, man. I can only imagine, because I know me personally, I try not to miss tackles as much as possible. I try not to miss sacks. I try to make every time I touch it, make it count. So when you make contact with a guy and then he bounces off and keeps running, most of the time when you see that from a defensive player, he don't even get up off the ground. He just look up, watch him run past, and then put his head in the dirt and just say, "Oh." So that lets you know right there that that's the worst possible thing that can happen for a defensive player.
Yeah.
That was a really nice way to frame it. But listen, I've seen you hit guys so far back that it doesn't matter. They just lose yards if they keep going, right? So
Mike, was there any defensive player that would start to really get frustrated with you when you're playing back in the days, that he would be like, "Oh, man, stop doing this," or like would really get aggravated when he was playing against you, that you're like, "Man, I'm just I can't see anybody hating you on the field"? But was there anybody when you were playing on the other teams that sitting doing that they would sit there that you can remember there was like that he would really get frustrated or say stuff to you?
Well, there were a few, but more importantly, guys that frustrated me, right? We had a guy named Daryl Hall who played in Calgary, and he later to play with the Broncos. And he was about 6'2", long, rangy, athletic. And man, this dude, he put some gloves on me, right? He taught me that I needed to, how to get off the line, because usually you're playing against a linebacker, right? It's okay, hey, we're just going out. Daryl Hall gave me some headaches, and then the other thing was the Winnipeg Blue Bomber defense, right?
So the whole defense
was there, and they had the just a really competent defense at that time, and Greg Battle was the guy who made the most tackles and won the Player of the Year award. But he had two guys on that defense that may have even been better than him, so that defense was probably the defense that I loved to play against the most, but they also banged me up the most. I was the least productive, but I always loved the challenge.
Was there anybody that, I know Charleston likes to be able to talk a bit. When we had Bo Levi on, Bo would hear Charleston talking a bit and say, sack, sack, it's coming. Charleston, Mike, do you remember anybody that was really good at trash talking back in the day?
So this guy in Winnipeg, they came off the edge. Can you guess who he is?
Winnipeg, off the edge.
Came off the edge of Winnipeg. He
give me a number.
What was his 39? He hit me so many times I can't remember his number.
Winnipeg.
Doug Cameron.
Think of,
but before Doug Cameron's time.
Yeah, think of a rush in. So
I'm gonna look it up right. I'm gonna look it up right now. That's what we need on the show. We need somebody to be Googling information when it comes up and we don't know. Okay, what year are we talking?
All right, so we're talking anywhere. Let's just say 90. Yeah, so 1990, because he was there from the 80s on through the 90s, and before you, he might have been the baddest guy to come off the edge.
It's not Joe Mumford, is it?
No,
Joe was fantastic too. He was in Hamilton most of the time, Toronto a little bit.
Yeah. Did you play with? I know that when we were talking earlier on, Mike, about we toured around with I think wasn't Joe Mumford with us when we were the Athletes in Action?
You right?
Yeah.
You are right. Yes.
And he was even wearing a suit, you could see how massive he was doing that. I can't imagine him on the field. Yeah.
Yeah. But with that guy, the difference with that guy is his arms, everything was huge, and his waist was the size of my wife.
Yeah.
Would it be Quincy Williams?
I'm sorry?
Quincy Williams?
So no. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us.
John Ewell. We got Burt Williams. We got James West.
So Wild West in the mix.
David Ward. We got Jerome Reinhardt. Quentin Riggins. Paul Randolph.
No.
Stan.
Randolph was another dude. Yeah, he was the quietest of them. You said everybody but him.
Tyrone Jones.
Tyrone Jones.
Number 35, was he not?
Yeah, that's right. That is right. Yes, I told you.
Tyrone Jones, 6', 220, linebacker.
Yes. He was a bad man. Yeah, he was. Just I got nothing but praise for him. He and James West, Wild West.
Yeah.
Two of those. James talked a bit, right? Let me say this. James talked a lot. Still a lot less than Tyrone Jones. He talked a lot, but he still talked a lot less than Tyrone Jones. So that's how much Tyrone talked.
I see. Tyrone Jones. He ended up playing for the Riders too for a little bit.
Yeah, he sure did, didn't he? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
St. Mary's, Georgia. He actually passed away June 10th of 2008.
Yeah. He sure did. He had cancer. Yes.
Fairly young.
He was a bad boy. Now, do you remember him, Jan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember. I mean, he was one of those guys that, I'm not sure if he was a CFL Hall of Famer or not, but I mean, he was one of those guys that was just, he was fantastic with Wild West and be able to do that. I mean, that was back in the day. Tom Clemons, no, was Tom Clemons a quarterback back then? I'm not sure if he was.
I think he may, because he was before me. He may have, he may have bridged the era. I'm not sure when Tom Clemons exactly when that.
Yeah. So I mean, Charleston always talks about playing with great quarterbacks. I mean, he named Bo Levi and Hank Burris as some of the best that he ever played with. Mike, who do you remember when you had quite a bit of the Argos with the Argos QBs? You played with obviously some of the best. Who do you remember? Who stands out to you as some of the best QBs that you ever played with?
Well, Matt Dunnigan was potentially the best leader that I've ever had. He was the only guy I saw was able to lead from the sideline. When he was hurt, he was still the leader of our team and out for several weeks. And often when guys, get hurt, they disappear, or their voice just doesn't resonate as much with guys. He was a guy that, he wasn't the guy to say, hey guys, let's go run through that wall. He run through the wall, then he turn around, guys come through the hole, right? So, and he had that mentality as a quarterback, and sometimes we wish he wouldn't have, because sometimes he did things that maybe he shouldn't. Like, hey, you're our starting quarterback, right? And the best guy that I've ever played with is undoubtedly Doug Flutie. He is the best, not just the best quarterback, the best player, including the year that I spent in the NFL. He is the best player that I've ever played with. And the best quarterback to ever coach was Damon Allen. So had a few. And so the best I ever played with definitely was Doug. The best I ever coached was Damon. And the best leader of them all was Matt Dunnigan.
I think, Charleston, your first year when you were playing in Calgary, wasn't Matt your coach?
Matt
Dunnigan?
No. My first year was Huffnagel's first year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was his first year taking over the organization as head coach. We had a complete new staff in 2008. We had all new players. I think they might have cut every single player from the year before, brought back everybody on offense, cut the entire defense, and then started off fresh. So it was like every spot's open.
We had some really great quarterbacks, and I don't want to kind of leave out, like, I left off, a Hall of Famer in Tracy Ham, but a little bit of a transition year. He was only here for 1 year and kind of transition. And another guy who is a legend in your town, Kent Austin. And again, one year together, right? And so both of those guys, we had transition years, and they, I think one was 93, or one was 93 and one was 95. Both challenging years for us. That 93 to 95 time frame was a difficult one for us. But yes, I didn't want to leave those guys off.
That's a pretty good list. Any way you say it, I mean, that's a pretty amazing players that you just named, Mike. One of the things you did mention was our town, being here in Regina. Give me your first or your best memory when you came here to play against the Riders. What do you first think about? What was your first experience in Regina? Did anybody, I mean, I know from a fan point of view, because I've been to several games wearing these outfits, being behind the Argo bench, I always used to get that, but my dad would take me to the games back early, and we'd be behind the Argo bench there at the old Mosaic Stadium. And I would get heckled. People would call me out and do it, even as a kid, 10, 11 years old, and they'd be saying Argos suck to me. They'd be calling me out, doing this. And I think that's what kind of, it obviously built character in me and be able to do that and made me hate the Riders even more. But that's what you expected when you came, Charleston. That when you played in, Calgary, coming here and doing that. Mike, what was your first experience with the Rider fans? What do you think about when you think about Saskatchewan?
It seemed like for a few years in a row, we played in Saskatchewan when they had the Fan Appreciation Day, and they would celebrate their favorite player, and it was Richie Hall. It seemed like every year. So the fandom is the biggest thing I remember, and the love and respect they had for Richie, and so the Riders have always been my second favorite team, right? And for whatever reason, we used to actually come out with Athletes in Action. We used to come out every year, and so it was just. For me, it was almost nostalgic, and there were a couple of times where maybe I played like that as well, because I was so enamored. Like sometimes I played like it was my second favorite team. Like I didn't play in Saskatchewan for what so many times. I remember kind of struggling and not having great games, but loving the atmosphere, loving the people. I have nothing but respect. I often, suggest that Saskatchewan is really the power source of our league. That's where everybody plugs in, and if you're a true Canadian football fan, I believe that everybody who's a true CFL fan, right, appreciates the Rough Riders, unless you're from Manitoba, right? Manitoba. So
Very true. Charleston, what was your first experience when you played against the Riders? What do you remember about first coming in and being at Taylor Field, and the crowd or the energy? I mean, you being talkative, Charleston, I can't imagine. I'm just, yeah. What was your first experience?
I don't like coming into the stadium, especially because I knew personally every time there's no coincidence that I ended up playing here. Every time I played SAS, I used to destroy Saskatchewan. Like single-handedly just destroy Darian Durant, probably the most sacked quarterback on my list. Like I used to destroy him single-handedly by myself, and then we'll end up blowing SAS out, and I'll lead a game with 3-4 sacks. Constant pressure on the quarterback, and SAS will go, look, he the only one beat us, and he on defense. He might as well score for him. But yeah. When it comes down to playing SAS, I used to get jacked up every time I get ready to play SAS, because I know, oh yeah, I'm definitely about to get off this game. I know I'm about to have a game. So, I mean, every time I step into the stadium, whether it was here in SAS or whether it was in Calgary, it didn't matter to me. I know if I'm playing SAS, I'm about to have one hell of a game.
It's game on. Well, let's talk a little about the CFL and where it stands, Mike. You're in the hotbed of the CFL city, the Toronto, being the fact that the Argos are so important to the CFL. I think it's one of the things too that it's. Unfortunately, you guys don't get the fan base that I think you deserve. I think that, Toronto's struggled over the years with attendance wise, and with this year, after COVID canceling the season, how do you think the CFL is going to be able to get back some fans? Do you think the CFL is even going to come back? We've had lots of Charleston's teammates on the shows in recent, and there's lots of different things that could come into play over the next few years with the XFL, and being, Dwayne Johnson doing such a good job of promoting the XFL and coming into it might take away some talent. How is the CFL going to recover from COVID? How is it going to grow in a city like Toronto, where it's, what a great franchise you guys have there, but we just can't seem to be able to draw fans there?
Listen, football is never going anywhere in the province of Saskatchewan. Yeah. It's never going anywhere in the province of Manitoba. It is never going anywhere in the province of Alberta, right? Those are that's the heart of our league, those 4 places, right? We are owned by MLSE, and our majority owner, Larry Tannenbaum, is the biggest fan of anybody, and consistent with that, right? That they are potentially the best sports organization on the planet right now. When you look at the Raptors, you look at the Leafs, $2 billion organizations, and then Toronto FC and the success they've had. All but one of them have won the championship in the last 3 to 5 years, right? Yeah. The Leafs are on their way. Yeah. So
yeah.
I got a lot of Leaf fans who happy to hear that.
Big signing with Joe Thornton the other day too. Yeah. So
in addition to that, we say Hamilton, just a tremendous owner, a gentleman who loves our league and is dedicated and committed to our league. We look east of Montreal, and they now have stable ownership. An ownership group who's come in and are committed to their success, have really laid a foundation as a Canadian corporation, as a company, and that company and that spirit is what they're bringing to the Montreal team. We have stable ownership as well in Ottawa. And then we go west of Vancouver, and David Braley is there, and he's actually had a few offers for the team as well. And so with that, the Canadian Football League isn't going anywhere. Understand that. Yes, there are some challenges. We may need a little bit of help, a little bit of assistance at some point, but the Canadian Football League isn't going anywhere, and that's definitive, and so we have to, and as wonderful as Dwayne Johnson is, right, I don't see them as our competition. Right, there are enough great football players to go around. Right, we look at football isn't growing as rapidly as some of the other sports around the world. Right, but football is. There are countries who are picking up, and over time, I do believe that because the game is so wonderful, and once those places can get a little bit better at it, a little bit more understanding, a little more depth, I think that because when you look at the global talent, right, that talent pool should be amazing, and we see so many young players who are coming from some of the the other places around the globe who are adding into that mix. But if we just said North America, right, we still wouldn't be challenged in terms of putting great content on the field, right? I can think of so many guys who are talented players who never had that opportunity or never had the chance, and in many ways it's because there are 2 leagues in the world as it relates to football that have been there with any level of consistency. And so while we may lose a player to the NFL, We may even lose some to the XFL, if you will. I think the other thing is we also get players from those places as well, and so we'll be able to replenish ourselves and certainly put what we believe is the best product in the world on the field, because what they some of those when you look at the NFL, you look at the XFL, and they'll have players, right? But they won't have our game, and that's the tangible difference.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Charleston, when you hear Mike talk and do that, does it ever persuade your choices when you're thinking about potentially being a free agent, when you have such a guy with such passion, love for the game?
You can't talk about this.
Yeah.
That's like big time tampering.
I guess that's a fine line. I better not be able to do that. Blah 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 blah. Earmuffs.
I got this by Saskatchewan earlier this year. I can't do this again. Yes.
We'll cut that question off. We'll change to the next subject to be able to do that. But I mean,
what I will say is that he's built so much of a reputation in this league, in the CFL, that even from a young player all the way up, if you're a first-year player, all the way down to a 13, 12-year vet, everybody knows his name. Like, he's built enough respect in this league, and I know a lot of younger players ask, who's this Pinball Clemons guy? Who's Pinball Clemons? And then they ask about him, and they start doing some research, and then they hear you speak. Like, you got enough respect amongst players in this league where, like, every single player from the young all the way to the old 100% respect him as a man and as a coach. So yeah, that's a good thing to have when you're moving up big time into a team like that.
Without tampering, I guess I better rephrase my questions to be able to do that. But
I do want to say that my greatest strength, though, is I understand how important I'm not, right? The guys I stay with are the ones who made me, and I'm so grateful. One, to come to this country. I love it. It is my home. I'm a Canadian citizen, and to be able to play this game. So I'm so in awe of our players who play this game today. You are better than we were in our era, and so I love it. I'm passionate about it. I enjoy it, and I was able to return less than 1% of what I received from this league, and I'll keep trying, right? But it will always give me more than I give it.
Yeah, Mike, you talked a little about ownership. You talked about, the Bob Youngs and having a great owner, and Jeff Tannenbaum and all that. Back when you were playing, you were pretty fortunate to be able to have a good group of owners. And let's talk a little bit about how it was when John Candy, Bruce McNall, Wayne Gretzky came into the picture and started to own the Argos. How was that? And you were fairly new to how many years were you in the CFL by that time?
Yeah, so that was my third season.
Yeah, so now you get into this group where now they bring in their own charisma, and one of the guys that's Charleston. I don't know if you ever watched a lot of John Candy movies. Did you ever see a lot of his movies?
I just heard who you just named off, so I can only imagine how it was playing for those guys. I can only imagine. I know my ownership group, when I first came into the CFL, man, they treated us as players so good. They treated us how you should be treated, like a professional. It should be like the players first. Yeah, so they treated us like that all the time. So I can only imagine with that group you just said.
Did you know that they bought the Argos back in the day? Did you? No. Okay. So yeah, it's an amazing story about John Candy. I'd like to be able to know Mike's opinion of this, but from what I've read, what I've seen, such a great guy, big funny Canadian actor that just seemed like every time you got to see him on the sidelines, it looked like he was having fun, especially when the Argos were winning, and just seemed like he gave from within. It's just such a great character. But then you had a guy like Bruce McNall and Wayne Gretzky that's, you know, nothing but just everything associated with the Argos right there was just unbelievable. How was that, Mike, when you're early third year in the CFL to be able to be enriched with that? Not only that, then you got, you know, studs. You're playing with Matt Dunnigan. You get Rocket, you know, Rahib Ishmael coming into the CFL, and you have all this stuff. How good was that?
Oh my goodness! Wow! Woo! Fun of that time. John Candy, for me, was the heart and soul of that group. Gretzky, amazing to meet him. Amazing that every time he saw me, he was able to call my wife by name and always ask me to say hello. And so tremendous, like classy guy. And obviously big Gretzky fan, right? But John was a little bit different because this was his dream, right? For Gretzky, he was living his dream already. Mm-hmm. For John Candy, the Toronto Argonauts were his dream. When he grew up, he wanted to play for the Toronto Argonauts. Mm-hmm. And he said he wasn't a good enough athlete, right? But time suggested he made the right decision. But he absolutely loved the team, and one of the most amazing things for me is that he was so engaging. Like when he was talking to someone, right? It didn't matter whether Gretzky was on one side and a movie star was on the other side. He gave you his undivided attention. He made you feel like you were the only person in the world. And in fact, he would never end the conversation. You would have to feel guilty about taking too much of it. For someone to have to pull him away, he would stay engaged. He would never, just amazing. And he was, he'd ask you about yourself. He wanted to know, is there anything I can do for you? How can I help you? What do you want to do after you finish playing? This man was dreamy for me. I can't. There are not enough superlatives to describe John Candy, the man, and it was an amazing time. He was the most amazing part, though, of that whole experience. The play on the field, we won every home game. We won the cup. We had, 50,000 people at the Eastern Final. A lot of magic, right? But he was well, who stirred the straw, right? He was the one that made everything happen.
Yeah, I bet. And Charleston, I mean, you talked about it a little bit before. I mean, when you play for an ownership like that puts players first, how good does that make you feel? I mean, you're on cloud nine, right? I mean, it must be unbelievable.
I mean, I guess for a second, when you really come in as a player, you always battling for a spot. So you always thinking you're just a piece of meat. You're always replaceable, or you're always, always battling for a position. So when you really get established or accepted by, some upper management, then it's a different feeling, because then it feels like you're more a part of the team. You're more accepted. So especially as a player, because most of the time players think that once my time is up, my time is up. No, it's a bigger side to things than just that, especially for a guy of an ownership group to ask a player, what do you want to do after football? Sometimes for players, that's not even a thought. The only thought is that football, the next game. You never put into thought when the game is over or when I'm done playing football that I have to gear towards something else. So for him to even think to ask a player that, that's a big thing for me, especially because I tell it to my players that I play with all the time, like, don't sit here and keep banking on football, especially you got to work outside of this. We don't. Everybody knows we don't make enough money to support ourselves for life after football. So you got to be able to work. You got to be able to do something else. You got to be able to use this as a stepping stone to, you know, whatever life after football is.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's the truth. So let's talk a little bit about that too, Mike. You know, always making headlines with everything that you do, but it's some great news with your foundation. Let's talk about that and what you guys just did. I read a little article about your foundation and how it's able to keep on contributing to, you know, everybody around Toronto there. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened this week and with was it a young lady that was bullied there?
A young man, and
Young man?
quite a sizable young man. He's about 6'5", 300 pounds too. And, wants to play football. If I could maybe just go back to Charleston for a minute, I really your insight, bro. And when I think it was Sam Weiss was the coach of Tampa Bay, when Vinny Testaverde left there, and he wrote on the board, I think it was, everyone is important, but no one is necessary. And too many times, right, it's a balance between those two things. And too many times, management thinks no one's necessary, right? And too many times, the player thinks, well, I'm important, right? And, you know, I'm the most important, right? I'm the most important thing. And it really is the balance between those two and trying to exercise the balance. And for me, you know, as a player, I would want my mindset to be no one is necessary. And as management, my mindset should be everyone is important, right? And really having that thing as a player to kind of say that, you know, the game has been around a whole long time before I got here and will be around a long time after I'm gone. And you know, on the other side of that, really just having the love and respect, understanding that the players, right, are really the joy of our game. They are the excitement of our game. They are, you know, the clock moves according to their dedication, commitment, and abilities, right? So really just trying to maintain that balance. Our foundation was very fortunate to be in a position where we were able to help a young man this week who was 17 years old and graduated high school last year, is going to a prep school this year, hoping to play football in university, possibly. And his grandmother passed, and he wrote a message to her, a beautiful message, thanking her for helping him get through his 4 years of high school. And someone changed the messaging in his yearbook, and the comments were racial and disrespectful to his grandmother, and obviously he was very disappointed. I didn't know too much about. There was a post, and he was Argonauts and Toronto Raptors fan, and so people start reaching out saying, hey, did you see this? Can you do something? And turns out the kid is a really nice kid, really soft-spoken. He's a giant, though. He's, you know, just turned 18. He's 6'5", 300 pounds, and so you know, sizable young man, but a soft spirit. And so our foundation actually tries to take young people from the margins to mainstream or community to career. So the young people who are most marginalized, who are, so we work with young people who are in a shelter, young people so they're homeless, and young people who have come out of foster care, and young people who are in a marginalized community. And we try to take them from high school graduation, right, to gainful employment. So that includes scholarship to college and university. And so we provide scholarships for about 43 young people this semester. We try to help guide them as well. So we don't just provide a scholarship, and so we pay tuition and books, but we also have a mentorship session twice a month. So 2 Saturdays, every other Saturday, just about every other Saturday, we'll have a mentorship session with the young people while they're in, during the semester while they're in school, except for the last semester when they're studying for exams. I should say, except for the last month when they're studying for exams. And that way we can kind of keep track, see how they're doing, see if they need some help, tutor, right? Sometimes, people just need a meal, right? So a gift card. And so whatever that is, we try to be there for them. We teach or we coach mental health. We have a career counselor as well as financial literacy. And so all of those are part and parcel to the program. And so when a young person finishes and they get on the other side, they are more ready, right, to we try to get them to independence so that they can live a robust life that affords them the ability to make their own decisions and do their own things. We also have the option of a trades program. This trades program, about 75 to 100 youth go to the program every year. About 85% of the young people finish the program and go into a job. They generally start at $14 to $25 an hour because they don't know the trade yet. It's a 12-week program. And so after the 12-week program, they go into the trade, but they still have to learn their trade. When they get their ticket in a couple of years, they'll do well. They can expect to make 6-figure salaries by the time they're 30 years old. And then the kids, there's an IT program as well. And that's a 15-week program, and they go right into a job making an average of $39,000. The average household income is only $32,000, so they're already making more than their parents in most cases. So that's a little bit of what we do. And so this young man, we gave him, the opportunity for a 4-year scholarship that would include all of those mentorship opportunities because we wanted to do something. His birthday was this week, and we wanted to make it last longer than the incident itself. I had an incident that was very memorable when I was a kid growing up in Florida. And I wrote a poem when I was in grade 6 or 7. I can't remember exactly which one, but it said, "Stand up, boy, you don't sit there. You stand up, not sit in a chair. Hey, Blackie, I got some water. Do you want some?" Or I forgot, they don't drink water where you come from. Down-rated, segregated, discriminated, but others were hated because of our skin, not what's within. And I wrote that because of something that happened at that time. And so certainly there's that idea of relating to, for me, the bigger part of the story is not that something happened to me. The bigger part of the story is the thing that we don't want the thing that happened to him to be the big thing, right? For me, that's a really little thing. It's in my past. It's something that happened, maybe encouraged me to work harder. Maybe it actually worked the other way, brought down my spirit a little bit. The whole idea is that it's not the story, right? That's behind. And so for this young man, we want to make sure that this incident isn't the story of his life, that his story is much different from that.
That's fantastic. And how can we contribute to your foundation? Is there something that we can, even the people in Saskatchewan, I'm sure that they love Mike Pinball Clemons, they are going to be able to stand behind you and be able to do things like this when they hear your stories about things like that. Is there a way that we can contribute to the Pinball Foundation?
So yes and no. So the short answer is yes, you can, and we would appreciate it, right? Pinballfoundation.ca, so that's very simple, right? But the other thing is I really love people reaching out in their own community, caring for their own community. And so if you can't find a way, like if you don't know anything and you can't find a way to reach out, yes, we would love you to reach out and support us, right? But hopefully one day, and maybe it's through Charleston, we'll reach out and we'll be able to bring the same programming to Saskatchewan, right? So think about it, Charleston. So
the crazy part is I wish a program like this was around when I was in high school, because I actually have a personal connection to a program like that. Because my best friend committed suicide, and he was adopted at a young age. So sometimes he'll sleep in my basement, and I'll kind of sneak him into our house. Then we'll go to school the next morning. Sometimes he'll sleep at my friend's house. So he kind of bounced back and forth because he was abused by his adopted parents, and she only adopted people for the money. So he went through a real rough time, throughout our whole entire senior year of high school. And he was always like a high-strung guy and always stressed all the time. And he had the opportunity to go to college and ended up going to college. And I think I had a football game on a weekend, and he had called me, after the first semester and was like, "Look, man, I'm failing school." He was like, "I don't know what I'm gonna do if I don't make it in school. I'm kind of stressed out right now. I'm gonna lose my scholarship if I don't graduate school and everything. If I don't pass my classes, I can't afford to miss another course." And then I kind of told him "Look, man, just calm down, relax. I'll come out there. I'll drive 3 hours to come, see you, help you out with class a little bit. I'll take a break from, school. Just let me play this football game and I'll make it out to you, the next week." And then he was like, "Yeah, man," he was just, "Come if you can, but don't try to stress yourself out over it." Then I was like, "Look, man, just relax. I'm gonna be there." And I don't even think he made it 24 hours, 48 hours, and he ended up shooting himself over that. And I think he ended up failing out of school. And just the pressure of that and being alone and not really having nobody else but me and one other friend. And I think that's kind of what happened to him. And he got all stressed out and couldn't handle the burden of not having nobody, right? Not having anyone to talk to or anyone to fall back on.
Hey, man, I love your spirit, man. When you first texted and asked me about coming on, right? First thing I said, I love your spirit. I love who you are, and you're what makes our league great. So just keep being you, keep doing you, and I love seeing the heart of young men your age, right? When you get to be my age, you're supposed to try to give back and do something, right? But doing it at this time, at this age, and being who you are, it's just special. It was a real joy for me to be on with you today.
And that's one of the things, Mike, I think that both of you guys have so many similar character traits about it. The one thing that I always know about Charleston is that he's always giving back, and he's done so much for the people here in Saskatchewan. I think that's one of the things that I admire about Charleston, is that he's always giving back. He doesn't ask for anything in return. Very humble like yourself, and be able to do that. So for me, this is one of my dream shows, to be able to have both of you guys on. And I mean, Charleston's a co-host, so I mean, I always get to see Charleston and do that. But Mike, to have you on, it was simply fantastic and a pleasure. I know that you're a busy man, so Charleston, anything else you wanted to ask or talk about with Mr. Clemons?
No, man, this was a pleasure, man. I heard everything that I needed to hear today.
Well, Mike, we always end the show with Charleston's words of wisdom. But before he will start to get into that, I want to say again, on behalf of all the Argo fans, 4 of us here in Saskatchewan, thank you very much. I know I've always been a big fan of the Argos and the blue. I always will be, but because, of a player like yourself, I've heard you speak with athletes in action. I've heard you speak several times. And for anybody, all of our guests that are watching, if you get a chance to go out and watch Mike Pinball Clemons speak at any event, please do, because it really, truly touches your heart. It's such a great character, ambassador for the CFL. I'm glad to hear that you have so much optimism now. That kind of renews my optimism for this year. But Mike, thank you. I've always been a big fan of yours, but not only for what you brought to the Argos, but for your personality. And one of the things that my brother, so one quick story, my brother, it was his birthday. I was in Regina. I've lived in Saskatoon, then came to Regina for the game. I was maybe in grade 11, and this was when Rocket was playing, and I went to the Mosaic or Taylor Field early, and my brother wasn't able to come with me. He was in Saskatoon, and I asked Mike Clemons for an autograph before the game when the bus came in, and I think you came early too, but you were kind enough to sign a birthday card. Not only did you sign it, but you said, "Hey, what's your brother's name?" And I said, "Carter." And you go, "Hey, to Carter, wishing all the best on your birthday. All the best. God bless Mike Pinball Clemons," and to do that. And it just, fan experiences like that with players like yourself really, truly make a difference. So thanks for all that you do for the CFL and for my Argos and everything like that. So Charleston will leave you with the final words.
All right.
Oh, the final words, Charleston Hughes. Well, this is the Better with Age webcast. And the reason we call it the Better with Age webcast, because not only yourself that gets better with age and that nice beard you got going on. And I know very great words of wisdom, but there's wine, there's cheese, there's leather, there's whiskey. My game gets better with age on the field. There's lots of things that get better with age on the field. But the most important thing of them all is friendships. And I'm glad I met you a long time ago, heard your story about Dwayne Wade and LeBron and how Dwayne Wade was a killer on the basketball court and LeBron James don't possess that killer mentality. And that's, now you remember it, don't you? See, I don't forget nothing. But yes, friendships. So I'm glad I met you then. I'm glad I had you on the show now. A friend of mine is a friend of Johan. A friend of yours is a friend of mine. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. And but Dwayne Wade had some lasting effects on LeBron. Than he had then.
Yeah. LeBron's changed since then.
Gets better with time. That's it.
Yeah, better with age, better with time. Well, Mike, it's truly been a blessing, and thank you very much for coming on the show. All the best to you, your foundation, the Argos, go Argos, except for when Charleston plays them. And then we'll talk to you soon, Mike.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much. Okay, Charleston. Love to you and your family too, bro. I hope everybody is listening is healthy and happy, and your families are well. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Mike.